Some people know how to find them. So, welcome to this week's Uplifting Conversation. And I am delighted to have Lisa with me all the way from the USA. Isn't it wonderful? We can talk to people all around the world these days.
Yes.
And Lisa and I are, well, we've been friends for a few years. I think we met a couple of, it could be over 3 years ago now, I suppose. And I was a guest on Lisa's show, I believe, and we've had quite a few conversations, and we have very similar interests and a similar heart, and it's always nice to connect with other people. So welcome, Lisa.
Thank you, Kay.
I'm really pleased to have you here with us today.
I think we met, a friend of mine was attending one of your sessions where you were doing intuitive oils and
Yes.
and I went, and I think Valor and creativity or something like that sort of came out, and I was like, what? This is
inspiration.
Wonderful.
It might have been.
It may have been inspiration, yes.
Inspiration, because you're an artist as well, and sometimes like me, I like to be creative as well, and sometimes we need to do some things to fine-tune our skills and to open the door to be motivated and to work our creative magic. So
right.
Yes. And Lisa, you and I, we know that to get anywhere in life, if we are not happy, or if life is not steering us in the direction we want to go, or if we even just have a yearning. I'm not sure how much of your backstory I've heard, but I will be looking forward to hearing your backstory about what has got you to where you are, a little bit about why and what you were doing. So do you feel courage has got something to do with where you are placed now in the world with the work you're putting out there?
Absolutely, absolutely. So I grew up in I had an unusual upbringing in that it looked very normal from the outside. And in fact, people will say, oh, I thought your family was so put together and, perfect. But that's kind of how it goes, right?
Yes.
But yeah, a home full of chaos and violence and drinking and a little bit of craziness, but I found sort of shelter with my paternal grandmother, who was from Mexico, was a healer, and she was amazing. I mean, she could, if we were sick, she would go out and just walk around the neighborhood and come back and make a tea, and then the next day we were completely well, and my mother used to refer to her as the witch doctor, but she just knew plants. She knew healing. She knew the role that plants play in health and in our lives, and everything she touched had that sort of healing benefit to it. So she cooked. She was an amazing chef. And so everything, like I always say, I remember once we didn't have much and she came over to help, and we had like old leftover meatloaf and some top ramen and some other things. And she threw together this amazing meal that I've never forgotten how good it was, because at the time I was like, yuck, yuck, and yuck, all of those things. And it just was amazing. So I grew up sort of with her influence and sort of hoping and wanting every moment I could to spend with her, to get out of, everything else that was going on. And of course, like many women do, we grow up in that, and then we look for that in a partner. And then so we end up with that and more. But now it's, it's directed at personally instead of, like my mother took a lot of what was going on. But so then I was in an abusive relationship for quite a while, and then I had kids, and then it was, trying to figure out how I was going to get out of it and how I was going to move on. And I was always very creative and very artistic, and loved painting and drawing and creating just about anything I could do. won contests when I was a kid to paint murals and do all sorts of things. And as soon as I really got into this relationship, it was, you're made to feel small, and you're made to feel less than, and your hobbies are stupid, and your talents are you're bad, and all of those messages that you get from someone who's abusive. So I didn't pick up a paintbrush or didn't draw anything other than like to help my kids with their school projects or something. I didn't touch anything for about 17 years. And when I finally was free of him, one of the first things I did was go to the arts and crafts store and buy myself some paintbrushes and some paint and sit down and see if I still could do it. And I still had this perfection. I call it the dis-ease of perfection. I still had this within me, because when you grow up in that realm, nothing's, it's good enough or it's perfect one time, and you try to replicate it and it's never the same and it's never good enough. And you have this, this need to overdo and strive for perfection and never quite get there. Right. But that's your armor, right? That's how you get through things, is like really overachieving, or some of us, some people, that was my what do you call it? The
way to survive. That was your survival.
That was my survival method,
right? Narrative that was in your head to
right. And the character that I embodied, it was this perfection, overachiever, go, never stop, never take care of myself, always solving problems, and yeah, the courage that it took to, I think, because I do work with a lot of women who have freed themselves from that perfectionism as well as abusive relationships. But I think, we have that courage all along, right? We have it inside of ourselves, and there's always something that triggers it. There's something that it's just all of a sudden one day you wake up and you think, I'm stronger than this. I need to be free. I need to take care of myself, my children, whatever it is. And I'm going to put my foot down. I'm not going to take it anymore. And then all of a sudden that courage comes flooding back in when you finally decide that you're worth it. And so, yeah, so now I kind of go by the adage of, take no shit, but do no harm, kind of thing, where I just don't want to, I'm not going to, bullies are my biggest pet peeve. And so I'm definitely a voice for many of those who don't have a voice. And that was one of the reasons why I created the conference, or the She Is Me conference. And you've spoken a few times at that. And we can talk about that later, but that was sort of the path that led me to creating this platform for women to be able to be brave, be free, not have that courage, and not be afraid anymore. Not be afraid to tell their story, to stand up and say, hey, this is what happened to me, and this is who I am now because of it.
Absolutely. No, and we all have our backstory. And if you're like me, you don't actually really want to go over a lot of that backstory, but it's more about recognizing that that's somewhere where we've come from. We've come from a situation that's not ideal now. And we would all, I would say that we all have varying degrees, or varying, whatever terminology you want to put it, or varying experiences, different experiences. For some people, it might be just that they, simply married someone who they didn't resonate with. So even if you haven't got, like you talked about, your family life, which is something, as we've got older, we start to, the veil comes off, where we've come from. I remember thinking, everybody else in the world was kind of like me, and all other families were similar to
Yes.
me. And we just assumed, I did anyway, that other people had a similar upbringing, and we all thought the same, and life was rosy and wonderful. And for me, yes, I came out of an abusive relationship many years ago, and I love the idea that you mentioned that we all actually do have courage within us. Now, I really like that that concept, because we do, but it's about activating the courage that we
Correct.
need inside. So there's usually some triggers or some stimulus, something's happened in our life to activate our courage. And I think you and I are on that similar path of we've come from these situations that aren't ideal, and what can we do to bring ourselves out of it. And then once we bring ourselves out of it, then you feel like you want to touch other people's hearts and other people's ability to get out of something that you're not happy with. And I loved your words. I've been writing a few notes down. No shit, do no harm. I mean, that is fantastic. Imagine if that was our motto that we all followed.
Right.
Wouldn't I'm always talking about, wouldn't the world be a beautiful place if this or that, and that is one of those ifs. If we all took no shit and we did no harm,
Yes,
that mindset would support us to navigate our way through those rough times and
absolutely.
come out the other side. I'd just like to say a welcome to Mel Craven, my lovely friend Mel. She has commented. So can you see the comments, Lisa?
I can't. Wait, let me see. Let me go over here and see.
You should be able to.
Here we go. Good morning, beautiful, courageous, authentic women. Good morning, Mel.
Beautiful. So Mel's one of those beautiful big hearts that shines her light in the world, and she's definitely on a similar mission to support us. And Mel has actually been on one of these conversations with me as well. And actually, Mel's just been courageous. She and her husband and children have all travelled from way down south of Tasmania and has moved all the way up to the north part of Australia, through the desert and across the sandy ridges, and had a great time exploring and across the rugged roads, and has landed in Northern Territory in a beautiful little community where they're going to have her expertise, and she's already posting some beautiful things about what she'll be doing. So I love the idea that we're creating a collective or a global movement. I think these days many of us are realizing that it's time for us to give back to the community. And for me, that's part of what I'm doing with these conversations. Now, you might be listening on the live, you might be watching my YouTube channel, you might be watching the podcast. So if you would like to watch this live, or you can go and find my YouTube channel, just Kay Hamilton, and you can go and find all my lives there where I record all these wonderful shows. And we have an Annette Bove. Is that a friend of yours?
That's Annette. Yeah, she's a speaker. She's been a speaker at the conference. So welcome, Annette.
Oh, absolutely. Fantastic.
She's also survivor, domestic violence survivor, and she has an amazing story as well. And so I'm sure she'll know exactly what, but I kind of want to go back to the courage conversation, because there are so many times when we've used our courage, right? We just forget. We just have forgotten because of a lot of times we're just so beaten down. We forget who we are. We forget. I mean, if I asked you, 10 years ago, Kay, like, who are you? You wouldn't have known what to answer. Or if I had said, what's your favorite thing to do? You would have been like, help my kids with their homework or something, to that effect. Like, because we stop thinking about ourselves, and we stop thinking about who we are and what makes what makes us resonate in joy, on a day-to-day basis, and keep our vibration really high. And I think, yes, there are so many of us that Annette, you, me, Mel, so many of us who have are leading the way for others who aren't there yet, right? There's so many women who are just sort of hearing about this idea that they can be sovereign beings, that they can be independent thinkers and have a life of their own. And I mean, you could see there was a I don't know if you saw this on the news, but there's a woman comedian in the US, and her name is Chelsea Handler, and she does this Instagram thing when she talks about being a childless woman, and that she's very happy about it, right? She's her own self. She never wanted to have kids, and she talked about this, and the right in the US really went after her yesterday, and everybody attacked her because their idea of a woman is an object to serve mankind, right? And so if you've grown up in this, I mean, I grew up in the Catholic faith and this idea that, you know, you have to have these certain things that you do and you have to get married. That was the number one thing. You had to get married and you had to have children. So I was a good little Catholic girl, and I grew up and I went to church and I got married and I had children and I did everything I was supposed to do. None of it what I wanted to do. None of it was my path and what I dreamed of doing and how I dreamed of doing it. And so I really love this. I really love the younger generation right now, like my daughter's generation, the 20 somethings, because they're really getting it. And they're kind of saying they're so courageous, and that's due to their mothers, like our generation, saying enough. We've had enough. And we're teaching our daughters to be these strong. My husband calls my daughter mini me, because even some of her expressions and everything else. But these girls are making choices that I would never have had the courage to make. I would never have been able to. I mean, I started college with the degree that my mother wanted me to get, not the degree that I wanted to get. And really just was always looking for that approval, like my whole life was just sort of making sure that everyone around me was happy with me and with what I was doing all the time.
So you were seeking that deep, loving connection in reality, weren't you?
Right.
That's what the approval is about. And I'm sure your parents loved you, but
yes,
there was some conditions maybe around it by the sound of it.
Right. Yeah. And I don't think they, you learn from those who raise you, right? So, so they learned from theirs and they learned from theirs. And it just is one of those things that, when we talk about tradition, there's a lot of tradition in that teaching. There's a lot of tradition in what your mother taught you, just because that's how we've always done it, right? So this is how you make stroganoff, and because that's how we've always done it. You can't, and that's just an example, but you can't go off that recipe at all. And it's the same thing with love and marriage and your life path. Like, you're a woman and you need to have children and you need to be a mom, and but at the same time, you better bring home some money. And at the same time, you better look good. And at the same time, you have all these conditions all the time. So for me, it was enough. I was feeling so squeezed that I couldn't breathe. I couldn't breathe. And I literally would hold my breath because I was so overwhelmed. And I would realize, like, I'm holding my breath because I've got nowhere to go. I'm just bound by all of this. So once that there was a crack, right? Once I decided that, or I did something, I took a little step outside my comfort zone, and I said no when I should have said yes because of how I was taught, or I would never go against rules or anything like that. And I finally said no, because I didn't want to do it. Like that was a little crack. That's where the light came in, right?
Yes.
And then I thought, oh, that feels so good. I can breathe. I can breathe. I can breathe. And that's really all it took, was that one little step where made that crack. And then the light came in, and then the light activated that courage inside of me. And I became more and more and more of myself. Right. Which is like, I sort of had this picture just now when I said that, of digging through a chest and finding my cape again.
Yes.
Like,
oh, I like that. I
put
like
my cape away. Right. And so now I'm like digging through this old chest at the end of my bed, going, I know it's in here. I know it's in here. And taking it out and throwing it back on, and saying, you know, da, da, da,
yeah.
cape on, and
That
I
is
feel
interesting, because I took that a vision of you digging through the crack in your chest and finding the cape within your heart. So there, it's just, which is a
Isn't
similar
that
sort.
beautiful? Yeah. Well, that shows how connected we are, right?
Yes.
But yeah, so it evolves, and now I'm a completely different person than I was, 15 years ago. 15 years ago was when I left my abusive relationship. But I'm a different person, but I'm me now. I'm completely and totally me. And
it can
but
take
I'm
a
still
while.
evolving.
Yeah, it can take a while for that to happen. I had a friend, an ex-boyfriend actually, and he had seen me. It was sort of at the tail. It was sort of at a point where I was coming out of a very, very unpleasant situation for the whole family, and he was very clear that he didn't want to dominate my scene, and he didn't want to become this. He kept saying, oh, you just want the man of your dreams and blah blah blah, which turned out he wasn't. But what he did do was, he said to me, what are you passionate about? And I just stopped and kind of thought, well, what am I passionate about? A bit like what you talked about, when you've got children. I had 3 children at that stage, and my mind was just full of nurturing the children, clothing them, feeding them. How am I going to survive? And
the to-do list, and an unending to-do list.
So, I've often felt like opening up a Facebook group called Beyond the Kitchen Sink, because beyond the kitchen sink there is, or having a blog Beyond the Kitchen Sink or something like that, because I think we get tied to the kitchen sink, we get tied to doing the dishes, or tied to the kitchen in general, and there is a life beyond that. That is just part of our life, and it doesn't really have to dominate our world, but it takes a while to dig through that chest to find that cape, and to
it takes a while to get there. And there's a lot of talk. One of the big buzzwords is self-love, right? Self-love and self-care. And so a lot of people say, well, I take Yvonne said she's tied to the juicer in the kitchen.
Okay.
But a lot of women that I work with, they say, I do self-care every week. I get 30 minutes on Friday night for my bath, and I have candles. And I'm like, that is just not what we're talking about here. Yes, it's wonderful to take a bath, but why do you have to have, why are you only allowing yourself 30 minutes to take a bath? And I think, but I think something that we learn is that, we have to give everything to the kids, and the kids get a choice in everything. And if they don't want mommy to take a bath, then mommy won't take a bath. But, again, we're the adults, we're human, we're people, we have needs. We have to nurture ourselves as much as we nurture our children. And something that somebody taught me not too long ago was nurturing our businesses. Like we're entrepreneurs, right? So nurturing our businesses we would nurture our children, which is something that I hadn't even considered right? And just like work, do, and going through these motions. And they're like, no, you need to nurture this. Like you want it to grow into something amazing, like your children did. So, but why can't we nurture ourselves, and why do we need permission? And why do we, mommy has, this is mommy time. You need to go to bed by 8:30, and mommy has
Yes.
2 hours to herself. She can paint, draw, journal, dance, whatever, but that's mommy time. And
that's part of teaching them about boundaries.
Exactly.
That's
right.
us being that guiding light of, no, well, hang on. I know, there was a stage where I would say, right, no, I'm just going to go into the bedroom and just lie down, catch up on myself, or do whatever I was doing. I just need 1 hour. After that, just that, because I'd never done that with my children.
Yeah.
They just dominated everything. And in the end, we've got to realize we're raising these children that only have an awareness for themselves and no awareness for other people's needs or even respect. And
I don't know if you know The Giving Tree, that book, The Giving Tree, where the little boy swings from the branches and the tree gives him fruit and the tree gives him, and the little boy, oh, it's lovely. So the little boy comes back, and as he's growing, and the tree gives him everything. And at the end of his life, the tree is just a stump. And she says, come here, boy, sit and rest. And he's an old man, and the tree is given. And I used to love that book, because I would be like, that's me and my children. Like, I would give them everything, and I would just be this little stump. And that's as long as I give them everything. And I recently found a rewrite of that book, and it's the tree tells the kid, like, go and get a job and go and take care of yourself and learn, I'm going to teach you how to do these things so that you don't destroy me in the process, and that I have a long and healthy life alongside you.
Exactly.
Versus giving you everything and leaving me with nothing. And so I think that's just such a beautiful rewrite that, and that takes courage, right? That takes courage to think about yourself and to think about, how am I doing all of this, and what am I getting out of it? And is it selfish? No, but we've been taught to think that it's selfish. We've been taught to think that caring about ourselves or putting ourselves first in any situation is selfish. And it's not, because we're the only, I'm all I have, ultimately, right? I'm all I have, and I can't do anything unless I'm okay. And I know you probably read my blog post about my move and all this stuff I was doing. And could I have reached out? Could I have done something else? No, I couldn't have, because had I put, and I talk about this, putting one more plate on that, I had all these plates spinning. If I had put one more plate, everything would have come crashing down.
Down goes the lot. Yes.
Right. Then I would have gone crashing down. And so, how do we have the courage to step forward and take care of ourselves first and foremost, so that we can then take care of what we need to take care of? And this idea that everything has to get done right now is this, what has been taught to us and our children and everybody over the past, 15 years or so, this instant gratification, right? Of, I want this, so I'm going to order it, and I'm going to get it delivered, and I'm going to hop in my car and go pick it up, drive through, whatever it is, food, crafts, doesn't matter. Anything your kids want, yes, order it right now. The kids even know how to use the phone and order stuff on Amazon. This instant gratification, and it does not need to be that way. And I'd say 9 times out of 10, if you give it a day, those things aren't even wanted anymore.
It's definitely not sustainable, is it?
Right. But that's how we then are running ourselves into the ground. And until we have the courage to set those boundaries in place and create some of these new habits and break those old traditions and even 15 years, it's a long time to have something where you're always saying yes, always saying yes, always saying yes, always saying yes. And then you wonder why. You look in the mirror and you're like, oh, look at my wrinkles and I need Botox and I need this and that, because
too many yeses stamped across your forehead.
The stress of it all, and so everything I'm talking about, that takes courage. It takes courage. And I'll tell you what, like I said, the one time I said no, when I'd always said yes, even though I hated doing it and I didn't want to do it. But I'd always say, okay, smile on my face and go and do something, and then resent it and be pissed off the whole time and grumpy. And then I'm yelling at the kids, and then I'm mad at myself. Why did I do that? And sometimes we don't even realize that we're mad at ourselves for giving in. We just have all this anger brewing and we don't know why. And it's because
absolutely,
I
and
did
that
it
becomes
again.
a residue, doesn't it, within us? Yes.
I did it again, and I didn't want to.
Yes.
And once I said no, that first time, it was like, oh, what? Did the walls come crashing down? Did everybody hate me? Did, no. They were like, oh, okay, mom said no. So, okay, we're not doing that. And there was power behind that decision.
Children are natural at no's. My children taught me. One day it just dawned on me that you'd say, oh, could you help me do this? Or, would you, please, could you do that? Oh, no. And they would just say no. And there was no, without any, emotional attachment or add anything going on, the no comes really easily to them. And so I kind of went, well, if they can say no, why can't I say no? It's just pretty amazing like that. So, yes, saying no becomes very powerful. Now, we've got Jean, the lovely Jean. How are you, Jean? In our comments online, familiar with the anger of being mad at myself. Absolutely. And I think, we can beat ourselves around, but then we've got to really look at that and think, well, why am I being angry with me? Because, where's the value in that when really if we're saying no to something that we're not resonating with, that's our truth.
That's our truth, right? And that is that sacral center, right? That sacral center, that
absolutely
that gut feeling that you get, and the reason that you're mad is because being mad at yourself feels better than being powerless. And powerless is really what you feel when you've given up what you want, right?
Yes.
You don't have a choice, and you have to say yes, or else the walls are going to fall down and everyone's going to be mad at you and blah, 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 blah. Like, you feel powerless in that you can't say no. And then you're mad, because mad feels better than being powerless, right? So then this is the core of my teaching. This is the core of what I teach people, is how to move up that scale, how to get from feeling powerless to feeling happy, to feeling joy, or to feeling bored even. Bored feels better than all of that, right? So it's really walking you through that steps. And then once you learn that, you can go pretty quickly through it all. Sometimes not so quickly if it's a big thing that you've got to deal with. But, if it's I said yes when I wanted to say no, okay, let me work through that. And then you sort of feel powerful when you start start getting into an alignment with how you really feel and in your truth. And that's what a lot of people talk about. When you live in your truth, you're actually listening to that sacral response. You're listening to that self that's inside, and you feel powerful. And pretty soon you're reacting, or you're not reacting anymore. You're responding, because you're not sort of being like, yes, oh, I meant to say no, I don't really want to do that, but how do I get out of it? And then you're thinking of, when you do say yes, when you want to say no, then you're thinking of lies. How do you cancel? How do you?
Yes, I was going to say that.
how do you
self.
make something that I don't want to do that, and I don't want to be there. So, but when you live in your truth and you're in alignment and you're listening to that sacral response and you're responding, believe it or not, people have a completely different reaction to that because they feel your power. They feel your truth. They feel yourself. That you're not going, oh, sure, I'd love to come. And then, oh, and behind your back, they're probably saying, she's going to call later and cancel because she always does, because you always say yes when you want to say no. But once you start getting in alignment, and that takes courage to really listen and to really respond in your truth.
Absolutely.
And
With Yvonne commenting, saying, gosh, I'm learning to say no in my 50s. I said no on Wednesday when I was awaiting an important phone call and my friend not used to it. It didn't cope.
Of course not. Of course not.
We've got to recognize that that's their journey. That's not our journey.
Right.
Our journey is with us.
Yeah.
And
right.
Yvonne, I'm here to cheer you on with your nose because
good for you, Yvonne.
I think that's something that's going to be really valuable for you in life. Absolutely.
Right. Because when you are, you have your boundaries in place, and you, that's why I said you take no shit, right? You're not doing any harm to anybody else, but you're not taking it from anyone. And often along our journeys, we have friends, like the friend that you said she didn't cope at all, or she or he didn't cope at all. We find that when we start stepping into our truth and our true selves, and we've got that trust in our sacral response, and we just know who we are, what we want, and how we're proceeding, we find that sometimes people that we've attracted because we were in different states at the time, right? We were evolving. Yes. I had a teacher once say that your life is like driving down the freeway or the highway, and some people get on and drive with you through a couple cities, and then some people get off at the next exit, and some people get in your car, and but you kind of think of it that way, and like maybe this friend is someone who's going to get off at the next exit. We don't know, but we attract those people where we are. And so if we are unsure of ourselves and we are, nervous and anxious and need validation and all those things, then yes, that was my group friends when I was that way, when I was vibrating and being that. My sister or my daughter broke up with a boyfriend once, and she's like, "Oh, Mom, he was this, and this, ugh." And I said, well, where were you when you met him? And she said, oh, I was this, and this. And I'm like, you were a perfect match, yes. But you're a perfect match. But then you evolved and you're not that anymore. You're something else. And that's okay. That's okay, because everyone who comes into our life is there for a reason, and we learn from them and they learn from us, but it doesn't mean that we have to be attached to them forever. And detachment isn't something else that takes a lot of courage, and something that I learned in some 12-step programs growing up as an adult child of an alcoholic. I am a proud member of a program called Al-Anon, and Al-Anon is, and I really attend mostly meetings for adult children because I'm not an addict or an alcoholic or anything like that. So, but adult children, we talk about, where we came from and what we learned in that. And some of those things that attract us to other people are those things that we learned, right? So we learned that this is the way. When people act like this and they're fun, then we want to be around them, but they might be fun only when they have 16 drinks, right? So you kind of have to recognize, is that my truth? Is that what I really think is fun? Or is that something that I learned and now I'm, because that's what I did for the longest time. I attracted people who acted like the people I grew up with. because
Yes.
that's where I was, right?
Well, it was probably familiar, and it felt, you resonated with that, the energy of that. So,
Yeah, yeah. So when I changed my energy, then I
mm,
started attracting people that were growing like I was, evolving like I was. And now I have a completely different, I mean, in the last, I'd say 15 years was like the real work. I'd done quite a bit of work before that, but the real work was the last 15 years. And it keeps going and keeps evolving. And I keep meeting new and fun, amazing people who like what, I sort of, again, this is courage, like to have the courage to think about what I want next and
yes.
how I'd like it to show up. And, or sometimes just universe surprise me. But I really want to know about this. I really want to learn about this. And it's kind of like how I met you, Kay, was, this is something I want to know more about. And I didn't really have any idea about oils or how they're made or where they came from or what they can do and on and on. And again, so a friend of mine was like, oh, I'm watching Kay Hamilton and she's doing this. And I'm like, I want to do that.
Oh, beautiful. That's lovely.
Yeah.
So, now we've touched on the subject of oils. I'll have to just ask you, do you feel like, what the keys, or if somebody does want to make these changes, looking at some things that, so I call them tools.
Yes.
I'd like another word for that than tools, but they really are tools. They're things that we work with to help us. So could you maybe give us a little rundown on some of the tools you've used and oils? Are you enjoying using oils, maybe sprays, making blends?
Oh, yeah.
Journey is there.
I just, I have to tell you this because this is exactly what I did today. There's a brand of spray that you spray in your toilet before you go. And,
Yes.
and, I was looking at it and I was like, why couldn't I just make that? So earlier today, I was looking up recipes. So that's something that I'm going to do, because we now, in our new house, we just moved, we have a small bathroom
Mm-hmm.
in the front living room area. And I'm like, oh yeah, I think we're going to need something in there. But I think the one sense that I have that is activated more than the rest of them. And I'm kind of this person that everything is ooh and ah and touch that and look at that and look at the color and I'm constantly. I had a friend who told me once not to take drugs because I'm already that way all the time. I'm like, oh, wow, so crazy. But I think smell is my number one. And I have fibromyalgia as well, which is a result of trauma and stuff that I've experienced in my life. But my smell sense, it really is sensitive. And so anybody walks by me with that sort of chemical perfume or cologne or candles or anything like that that has sort of a chemical component to it, it just like sets me off. It's just like my head starts pounding and I feel like I'm I'm choking. And
Yep.
so oils are definitely something that I've turned to before I met you and before we actually got together. But I just was more about the smell of things. Like I love combinations like mint and eucalyptus and cypress and lemongrass and stuff. Like I love these really rich, amazing things. So of course I have what do you call them? The little, you have one behind you.
The diffusers, yes.
Diffusers, yeah, diffusers everywhere and more oils, not more than you, but a lot.
That'd be
And
but there are lots of people with more than me, I can assure you.
But and my daughter, even for my birthday, she makes me these beautiful, she buys these plain pine boxes that actually hold, they have little squares in them to hold
Oh,
oil.
yes.
And then
Yes.
she uses a wood burner, and she burns beautiful, because I paint mandalas, I paint mandalas. So she put like
Yeah.
mandalas or ravens or things that I love, and she puts them on these boxes. So now I have, boxes, these beautiful boxes. But I'm constantly, I create my own skincare, my own lotion, and my own face cream, and my own shampoo, and my own, everything with oils. So just because I want them to smell how I want them to smell.
Yeah. So I don't think, before I came across oils, I used to use, yes, a bit of eucalyptus. If, you had a blocked nose or something like that, or a bit of lavender or something like that, a bit of tea tree,
Yeah.
if the kids hurt themselves or something, put a bit of tea tree in water, and soak them. So I used to use them, just touch on the use of them. Whereas now they've become much more a valuable and viable part of my everyday life. And I discovered, for me, the power, the transformative power of these oils, and using them with intention. So it's been very transformational. Annette says essential oils have been a huge help for my anxiety and PTSD, as well as health issues. I'm a firm believer in the power of scent. That's true. And they've done some studies, some research has been done, and smell is one of our oldest and most powerful senses. And it is, so powerful in releasing those old memories and making way for us to step into the new. And that's why whatever work I'm doing, for me, essential oils are, a very big part of it. But let's move on, because we've gone deep and around all our past, but let's talk about where you're moving to now, because you've got some exciting you hold events, and you've got another one coming up. So I'd like to hear all about that, so that anyone listening might like to join you, or let's know. Sure. You take it away.
So my path then, I touched on this a little bit earlier, led me to create this conference, and it's called the She Is Me Conference. And the reason for that is I was looking for a place a few years ago, for a place to tell my story. I finally had the courage to tell my story. It wasn't triggering me anymore. And I felt like that I wanted to help other women, and I wanted to figure out a way to do that. And I couldn't be everywhere all the time, and I couldn't, and helping one woman one-on-one sort of get out of, as when you're in it, and it's really hard to sort of pull someone else out of an abusive relationship, right? So
yes,
that just wasn't working for me. And then I was working at a shelter, and I was helping women who had found the courage to leave and brought their kids there and everything. And it was so heart-wrenching, because so many of the women went back. The men would find out where they were, and it was just, I just was like, okay, this is not working for me. How can I help more women in a different way? And it was one of those downloads, one of those things that I woke up in the morning, and I usually get those messages sort of like first thing in the morning before I'm fully awake. And I was laying in bed, and I was been asking, how can I help women around, make a bigger impact, help women around the world, and do it in a way that I'm lifting them up, and we're lifting each other up, but that we can tell our stories, and that we have a safe space to do so. Because one of the things that was holding me back from telling my story, even though I wasn't being triggered or anything, was the bullying that takes place across the internet, right? And I mean, no one is immune to it. It doesn't matter what you post. Somebody's going to have something negative to say, and somebody's going to have an opinion and express it. And sometimes it's not the nicest thing. So how could I create a safe space for women to tell their stories, which is something that I wanted to help women unload that they were, that burden that they were carrying around, that weight that they were carrying around of all those secrets and all that pain and all that shame. How could I help them unload that, share their stories with other women so that other women knew that they weren't alone? Because that was one of the things I felt. And one of the things why my courage escaped me for so long was that I felt like I couldn't tell anyone.
Yes.
I was so ashamed that I had let myself be put into this situation. Yet I had been convinced that I was dirt. I'd been convinced that I wasn't worth anything. I'd been convinced that I couldn't do anything right. You know, I'd convinced them all of these things. And so I was like, that is such a burden to carry around, and that shame around that, and the embarrassment and the shame, because everyone always asks women, like, why didn't you leave? No one ever asked the men, like, why didn't you stop hitting her? Why didn't you stop threatening her? Why didn't you stop, it's always like, why didn't you leave? Why didn't you, whatever. And so safe space, share our stories, lift each other up. And I kept getting these messages of use what you know, or do what you know. What does it mean, do what I know? You already have all the tools you need. I kept getting this messages. You already have everything you need. Just do it, do it, do it. And I'm like, everything I don't know what that means, And so I had been looking for a place to tell my story, because I wanted to tell my story in a way that I could inspire others to tell their stories. So that we stop being quiet, and we stop holding these secrets for these people, these abusers, that we stop, not saying anything because they're going to get mad. That's that whole idea. But if we expose it, that it's something that's happening and we need to do something about it in a way that isn't, sort of finger pointing and calling attention, but to that person specifically, but that, we're raising awareness, right? But what I wasn't really thinking of was the 30 plus years of experience that I had in tech. I started out as an engineer. I became a software engineer, or started out in aerospace and then moved into software. And I had been putting on events for 30 years, whether they were live events or online events, virtual events. I've been doing this like with my eyes closed, my hands behind my back. It's just like boom, 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 boom. And for some reason that morning it all clicked. And I'm like, why don't I just create my own conference? Why am I out here like searching and searching and searching for some place that doesn't exist? I need to create it. So I created the She Is Me conference. And She Is Me is all about letting other women know that they're not alone. Because when you hear a story, like you hear my story, you hear your story, you're like, oh, she's me. Like that is exactly what happened to me.
Yes.
And we have this connection immediately, right? We have this connection. And then you hear how I overcame my abuse. Then you hear how I'm thriving now, right? And you have some hope, you have some light, and that little crack now expands a little bit more, because you wouldn't find us unless you were at that point where you needed to hear some of this information, right? So
absolutely.
Yeah. So now we've had 2 annual conferences with over 50 speakers at each one. We had a domestic violence event. We had a light workers panel and event, which was beautiful. And we have 12 events this year, which is
Gosh,
truly
that's
amazing.
wonderful.
We just had the Health Expo in January. We have a Small Business Expo coming up. We have Creators and Makers Day. We have a Cancer Day. We have a Mom's Day, and it's everything to do with motherhood, and it's everything from how to take charge of yourself and your space to postpartum depression. To one of our speakers just lost her child during childbirth, and so she isn't speaking, but we have another speaker who is speaking about that because it happens, and it's something we don't talk about, right? Because nobody wants to hear that. It's like, shh. So we have a STEM event. So it's women in math, engineering, science, technology. And the women coming, they're all over the globe. We've represented I think 23 countries to this point now. The speakers have, right? And our audience is global, and we've had a Hollywood director. We've had a woman who doesn't even have a company. She just found the courage to tell her story, and I thought that was so beautiful that I asked her to speak, because I'm like, you know what? Good for you. Come on. Just tell your story. This is a place.
Lisa, so these are all, I'm aware that we're coming close to our hour session. So can you let people know where they can contact you? I've got your website there for those.
Sure. So Creative Life Happy Soul is the work, the transformational creativity work that I do with people. And in fact, this painting was one that we did at one of our retreats, one that I did at one of our retreats. And this is, me letting go, and my hair is flying all over the place. And that's my freedom piece. But we paint, we sing, we dance, we scream, we yell, we have fire, we burn things, and we do a lot of really fun things together. We do have a grief retreat coming up. We're Tulsi Rose Yoga, the owner of that, she does grief yoga. So if you've experienced any kind of grief, or you're having trouble moving through that, we're going to have a grief yoga retreat towards the end of the year. You can find all of that on the She Is Me conference website. So it's sheismeconference.com. And we have a membership. You can attend one event. You can buy a season pass. You can become a member and get discounts on a lot of things. The members have classes that are for members only. So if you become a member, it's a really great way to meet the speakers more on a one-on-one basis. But my Creative Life Happy Soul is my own I do one-on-one work with people. So so you can find me those ways.
Well, that's wonderful. So it's been really great to catch up. You've, in the last couple of years, we've kind of gone, we've been busy with our paths. So it's been such a delight to hear that things are progressing really nicely for you. So I want to leave everybody with a couple of Lisa's sayings. And one is take no shit, do no harm. And then the other one is listen to your soul and take that step. Now, if you feel this is valuable, please let other people help us by sharing this. Get the word out about the She Is Me conference, and that's a website, wasn't it? It was sheisme.com.
Sheismeconference.com. Yes.
So that's right. Sorry, I've got it in the comments, but yes, sheismeconference.com. So and follow Lisa. She's on Facebook, and you'll
Instagram.
see her. Yes, she's all over the place. So
all over. And let me just plug you a little bit, because if you go to the She Is Me conference YouTube channel, you can find Kay's previous talks there.
Yeah.
So And a lot of other things. Yeah.
They'll be in your archives. So yeah, your YouTube channel, is it your name or is it, what's your YouTube?
So there's sheismeconference.com or She Is Me Conference is the YouTube channel for the conference. So
Yes.
There are a lot of things that past events, annual conference, the DV and the Lightworker thing, I think are all available. Anything that's taken place this year is for the paid members and the people who had tickets. We usually open it up about a year after.
Yes.
You know, we are self-supporting, so we pay for everything that we do through our paid supporters. So that's how we work.
That's how you pick.
And we also just established a grant program. So it's a 2-for-1. So if you buy a ticket, somebody in need gets a ticket. If you buy a membership, somebody in need gets a membership. So
I love that, because I think, when we are at our lowest ebb, often money can be a hindrance. And part of our journey is that, actually, when I went with my first Reiki 1, I did it with a lady because she offered the opportunity to just pay by donation, and I paid $50 for that, and it was life-changing for me. So I'm always aware, and that was something that helped me turn corners, and it's one of the reasons why I do what I do now, because it's a way of giving back to others. And then as time goes on, once you learn how to say no, and once you learn how to say yes to you, you can then, pass what you learn on to other people, and you become more financially supported and stable and affluent and all of those things, abundant, and you can look after yourself, and then you can start taking steps, and who knows, somebody watching this today or the replay or listening on the podcast, we encourage you to take no shit, to listen to your soul, and to step into your courage. And that happens when you take action. And your first no might be the very first piece of action that you could start. So we've left you with a little idea there. So I'm going to say my goodbyes from me. I'm going to thank Lisa. Thank you very much for being on with us. You've inspired me even to keep on keeping on, because sometimes it does feel a lonely world out there. And with us all working together and adding whatever value we can to this journey, we are making a difference. And really, we want to send that ripple out into the world so that we catch this beautiful community of women and men worldwide, because there are plenty of men out there that also need to be on this journey with us. So Lisa, have you got any parting words of wisdom or anything else you would like to share before we sign off?
I do just want to thank everyone for joining us today. I appreciate you taking the time that out of your day. I mean, we've been on for about an hour or so.
Yes.
I know an hour is precious. So thank you so much. And, try and take some time, I think, every day, even if it's just 10 minutes, even if you have to go into the bathroom at work and shut the door and close your eyes and sort of just get in touch with what you really want, how you really feel. You don't have to stay in a relationship that you're not thriving in. You don't have to stay at a job you're not thriving in. You can take steps, and you don't have to change immediately that moment, but at least thinking about it and getting in touch with what it is you want will get those wheels turning. And you are enough, and you do deserve it. And just by being who you are is enough. And I know you have the courage. So just remember our words, that the courage is there. Dig through your trunk, find your cape, and just keep on keeping on. Like Kay said, just don't give up, because the world needs you. We need you.
Exactly. So thank you, everybody. Go forth and choose the life that you want for yourself, and make a decision today. What's the one thing you are going to change? From my heart to yours, it's Kay Hamilton here from Uplifting Conversations. And thank you, Lisa. It's been such a delight.